Climbing inside the machine.
Welcome back. This is Metapod, episode 15, with me, Martin Franklin from East Coast Studio. Now, everyone will tell you that your life will change when you have a baby. But for most people, this doesn't include gaining a Facebook community with 500,000 members. But for my guests, Camille Jaramis and Phil Chester, that's exactly what happened when their baby sleep training group hit the sweet spot for parents all over the world. We caught up to speak about their experience in building and running the group and their next project, Yawn, the Baby Sleep Training Podcast. I was trying to find sort of a clever way into it, but I couldn't. So I thought the obvious thing is you have a Facebook group with 552.9 thousand people in it. I checked today.
We do, yeah.
And it says it was created a year ago.
That's right.
Yeah. Have we started?
Yeah, we have, yeah.
Oh my God, okay. We're in.
Be cool, Phil.
Yeah, sorry.
That seems pretty phenomenal. So can you tell me, like, how did it start?
So the reason why we started the Facebook group was Phil and I both had our kids during lockdown, and in Australia you get a mother's group, which is a really fantastic concept, which means that you get connected with a bunch of other new parents, usually new mums. Now it's called a parent group, I think, but largely it's called a mother's group. And you get connected to a bunch of new parents who are in the trenches with you and kind of going through the same experience at the same time as you. And it's a really helpful way to create a community. I found out that doesn't exist internationally in a lot of countries. In the UK, you often have to pay for membership to a group like that. And I don't know about the US, but it sounded either incredibly uncommon or not existent at all. And so that was the point of creating an online community, because like we are so not alone in the experience of being in those trenches.
Absolutely. And I think, COVID kind of enhanced that for so many people as well, that feeling of being alone and not feeling like you had that support network. So I think it was just the perfect time, the perfect storm of just what all these new parents were looking for.
Yeah. What would I need? What would other people need?
That's amazing. So you just kind of identified that need really and thought, I know, let's try and make a sort of open group on Facebook to see if other people share the same interest.
100%. I'd just gone through a certification to become an internationally certified baby sleep consultant, not because I wanted to change careers, but because I wanted to understand what I was in store for the next couple of years with my own child. And now I have 2 kids, so it was definitely worth the money to become certified. But that was the catalyst, essentially. That's why Baby Sleep, and that's why it was a tips and help Facebook group, was because I'd just done the certification and therefore was able to add that layer. And Phil comes from a background where he works in marketing, so he understands how to bring people together in a community.
Yeah, it's an interesting topic to have a Facebook group about, and now podcasts and stuff, because it can get quite opinionated. It can get quite, everyone has their way of doing things. Everyone thinks they know what's best, and every baby's different. And I think that when you look at the metrics of, Meta now, one of the things we get flagged the most by Meta is just people offhandedly saying, oh my God, I could kill my husband because he can sleep through the night. Yeah. Now, Meta flags that to us and goes, this is against our terms.
Violence and
exactly.
harassment.
So you have this what's become this hugely supportive group that could potentially get shut down if we don't monitor it carefully.
So Camille, was your training in the baby sleep just a kind of something that preceded the group, or you already had that idea before you did the training?
You're right. No, it preceded the group. I did the course.
Okay, I've got the expertise.
Now I can add value, and that's actually...
All right. So I'm sorry I want to be a little bit chronological here, which is something I often criticize my podcasters for in their interview, like don't do the kind of how did it start type of thing. But I just find this so fascinating that over the course of a year, you grew that bigger group. Your Facebook notifications must have been...
Oh, it's out of control. Facebook is no longer for
it's
our
not
own
fun
social.
Anymore.
Yeah.
It's just this post needs approval. This member is trying to join the group.
Did you have like a strategy for how you're going to reach all those people?
Originally, what I wanted was to create a place which added a lot of value, which would drive people to be able to come to the group or to want to come to the group, which I think has added to the growth rate that we've experienced. And so I would start by posting things that I knew people wanted, like routines and different methods. And if this is happening, then that's happening, which got people coming to the group in the first place, which started to, I suppose, growth begets growth. I don't know if it fits as part of an algorithm or if it is just the appetite of people who are looking for something.
Yeah, that's one of the things I was interested in. Did you have a kind of watershed moment where suddenly things really exploded?
Yeah, it kind of, I think the growth of the group went from sort of 100,000 members, which sort of blew everyone's minds, but the change from 100,000 to where we are now with 550,000, that was almost really quick. So the first 100,000 took months and was really slow. But since then, it's kind of, I think it's just word of mouth. It's now obviously Facebook sharing it because we have run it in a way that keeps it a really supportive community.
Yeah.
So Facebook is really pushing it to new parents as well as part of their algorithm. It's just that first 100,000 was sort of the hardest slog. And then when you get to that 500,000 period, it's kind of, that happened in this matter of almost a month or two.
I'd also add to say the first 5,000 were really hard to get. We worked hard to post and to give those gifts of information to really make it an attractive place to go. But as soon as it started to hit 5,000, next minute it was 23,000 and we had people knocking on the door to engage with us and try and be the face of the Facebook group. And then from 23,000, which sticks out for me, up to 100, it got easier and easier. And then it felt like it was overnight.
That's really interesting because I do a little bit of work on YouTube, and I've got some of my podcasters who are on YouTube, and we've had a little bit of a taste of that sort of effect of when you get the algorithm working on your behalf and it starts to recommend you, that's when you really sort of feel the growth start to accelerate. Yeah,
and that's where I suppose the link is. Camille's husband, Ray, and I are best mates. When Camille started this, I was really just there as a sounding board. Like Camille would say, I'm doing this. So we go, great, try this, try that. And then it really snowballed, to Camille's credit, with the amount of work she was doing. And that's when it sort of became apparent that, we need to work with Meta's algorithms now, and we need to work with their back ends to ensure that the group is safe from, just being shut down for, I want to kill my husband,
Just a sentiment that a lot of people can resonate with. But I also think it's the name. So it's called Baby Sleep Training Tips and Help. And I don't think that you could get a more perfect name for what people are actually looking for who are searching for it. So that was a very thoughtful and deliberate decision to grab that. And I couldn't believe it was still available. I feel like we're in a golden age where that might be also, a URL that you could grab. All of these things still exist. And I feel like the time is running out. So I grabbed that one the minute that we saw it.
Yeah, I was interested in that because, and sort of how it relates to, podcast titles and episode titles and that very sort of comprehensive way of titling things, because there are other baby sleep advice groups, but what differentiates your group is that you have the tips and help appended to it. So it's kind of like extra value being suggested just by the title.
I think the important thing to note as well is that it's now, obviously, it's gotten to a point that it is, so much, bigger than I think anyone expected.
I would have been happy with 5,000.
Yeah. But I think that, we also have essentially a team of volunteer moderators that mostly are sleep consultants and stuff from around the world that have reached out and said, can we help with this group? And so we have, I think we're at about 12 moderators now that sit there in their own time and they approve posts and they comment on posts and they help people through. And they've been a huge part of growing the group and really making it not just a discussion board. It truly is. It's tips and help. It's not just a forum where you go in and you go, this is what's happening. And someone's, oh, that happened to me. You can actually get feedback and responses for your questions.
That was also a condition that I put for the sleep consultants in the group was before they can offer their services, which we're comfortable them doing because you have to make a living, before they can offer their services, they have to answer the question first, which means that they're giving value, which drives the value of the group for both the member, but it also is a good place to get business for people who do need additional one-to-one help. And so I think it's a win-win environment for consultants to play and also members to benefit.
Yeah. Okay, so I had two questions that kind of connect with both those points there. So I'm guessing at some point you really found a need for additional moderators to just manage that number of people.
They reach out, they DM us to offer, which is really surprising. I think we've only asked for more people to volunteer once or twice, but largely people will say, do you need more help? Or they spend a lot of time in the group and they want the ability to block people who are being nasty. That's how we keep it a supportive place. We are pretty heavy on
pretty ruthless with blocking. People, yeah.
I think this is like really well known. As soon as you hit a certain threshold, you'll find people's opinions aren't necessarily kind of harmonious, and someone needs to play the parent role and moderate the nice behaviour for the group.
Absolutely. And every single post that goes into the group has to be approved by either Camille or myself or one of the moderators. So by doing that, we keep out a lot of the spam. We keep out a lot of the bot sites that just come on to try and promote, because it's really hard to pick them up when they're joining the group. But then when they post, you can just filter through and you can say, okay, this isn't adding value to anyone. This is just offering a discount somewhere. So we've been able to keep the group really genuine, and it's genuine parents all trying to help each other. And we're starting to see now success stories coming from the group. And I think that's been the most amazing thing.
So that point you made about people offering services to the group, how did you sort of evolve your policy around, whether that's permitted or not?
From the beginning, we've allowed sleep consultants to offer their service because they answer the questions first. So it's not that they get business for nothing. They have to work for it. And
you just sort of rolled with that and thought, okay, they're contributing to the community, being helpful. Let's let them.
We want them to.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
that's what keeps the group, operating. And I think that's what's contributed to the growth has been that, as I said, it's not just a forum of parents all talking their opinions. There are actually hundreds. I mean, that we've got, as I said, we've got the 12 to 15 moderators, but there are hundreds of trained sleep consultants that are in there offering their services and offering their thoughts and help for people. So you can get, help that would normally cost people hundreds, maybe sometimes thousands of dollars just to ask a simple question. And you can get that essentially through our group.
The trick is they're answering the what, they're not giving the how. So what's happening is this. They're not saying this is how you can fix it. That's where you would engage with their services, which is why they are incentivized to engage with the group. Instead of giving all the information and then getting nothing for it, they're just answering the what.
It sounds like you've really just kind of hit a bit of a magic formula with how you started the group and the naming and the need. So what kind of time impact does it have on you guys?
Look, it does take a lot of time. I think, again, the moderators do a lot of the work, which is fantastic. But now that it has gotten to that point where it is one of the largest groups on Facebook, the back end of it and, the admin support that we have to offer, it does take a lot of time. As I said, there's close to 1,000 posts a day, I think, going up, and each one of those needs to be approved. On top of that, we've got the podcast, we've got constant advertisers and stuff that want to work with us. But again, it's all about that original founding that Camille started. It's supposed to be a community. It's supposed to be somewhere where you can feel safely, unjudged and go and get advice. So the last thing you want to do is jump on that, and the first thing you see is 50,000 advertisers throwing their products at you. So it does take a lot of work to filter them out.
You've got the advertisers happening as well because of that organic growth that has just exploded. So just skipping back to that time impact question, I mean, how much time does it take?
I spend less time in there than I probably should because we have the moderators and they're incentivized to be a moderator, not just because they volunteered, but we also allow them to post a featured post every week. They mostly don't, which is fine. So our featured posts aren't spammed, but they're able to do that. And so they're incentivized to do a lot of the work. And because we have them around the globe, it's not like you wake up in the morning and you've got 1,000 posts to approve. They're just coming in constantly and being approved constantly.
I'm probably spending a bit more time on the back end. So I'd say roughly about an hour a day. But yeah, I think, look, it's also, you have to remember we are a year into it. When it was 5,000 members and just Camille, I mean, it was probably 15 hours a day almost, like, in terms of approving everything herself, coming up with the content, trying to span through it. It has, in the nature of the beast, in that it has gotten bigger and we do have that support. It then inherently means we are able to automate a lot more things. And Meta and Facebook, same thing. They are really good at offering admin assistance, and a lot of this stuff is automated now.
I was just interested in the geography of your members. Did you find that the geography shifted at all, at each different kind of stage of growth, or where are people?
The biggest area for the group is the States. We're at about 185,000 members.
193.
Oh, wow. Is that today? Wow. There you go. So we're at 193,000 members in the US, and that's followed closely by the UK. And I think that's just the nature of the per capita, but also, the fact, as Camille said, that they don't have that mother's group support like we are so lucky to now, we're so lucky to now have in Australia.
Plus, I think sleep training is more of a Western culture thing. I do see a lot in Africa that is increasing, the number of members in Africa who are joining. And I don't know what the cause of that is, but that has been an increasing trend over the last couple of months. Still as a percentage, tiny, but in terms of engaging and joining with the group, it's increasing. So I'm not sure what's happening there, but they're obviously looking for a bit more hands-on help in the way that we provide it and need it in our cultures here as well.
But we've also had to keep that in mind for the moderators. So we have moderators based in the US, based in the UK, based in Belgium, Canada, because people are posting at specific time zones. So, and it's almost like we actually end up offering a lot of help to the US and stuff because they're posting at 2 a.m. when their baby's screaming. Yeah. So that's when we're online and we're awake, and then vice versa. So we've planned that out with the moderators we have on board.
If people are in a bit of a crisis in the middle of the night, that there can be somebody there. It's like amazing 24-hour helpline.
That's the beauty of social media.
The group has actually saved a life. You know that?
I did not know that.
Yeah, I got ended up private messaging with the person, but they'd posted up and it was an anonymous post, and so most people can't see who it was, but as the admin we can, because we approve the posts, and the person, I approved it anyway, even though the content was a little bit distressing because it sounded like the person really needed other people to be there with them in that moment. They just lost a baby to SIDS and they were in the hospital, and I've got shivers. Yeah, the post was really, really distressing. They were obviously incredibly sad. The baby's just died. And the first thing that they did was come onto the Facebook group, which tells me that they don't have anywhere near the community that we have, or even, that person may not have had the friend group to be able to connect with, or they may have just needed a place to go that was anonymous and private. And so I ended up speaking with the person, and they were having horrible suicidal thoughts because it was such a distressing time for them. But
wow, that's amazing. I didn't know that. It
really validated that we'd done the right thing, firstly by making it and focusing on having it as just a community, not trying to monetize it in any way in those early stages, in the first couple 100,000, just making sure that it was the right place.
So you mentioned the podcast just a little while back, so we should get on to that, which seems like a really exciting next step or additional step for you to take. Have you got any thoughts about how you'll connect the podcast with the group?
So, this is where I come into it. This is what I do for a living, is sort of digital marketing and cross-platform transformation. And so it came up in a conversation with Camille and I when we were talking about the group and where it goes to next. And as I said, one of the things that we noticed was people are posting, we get posts all the time. It's like, hey, mums, I'm sitting here. It's 2 a.m. I don't know what to do. And one of the things we thought is, well, potentially what we can do is we can take this discussion and take these, the learnings that we have from the group and all the input and put it in an audio format so that parents can, when they are sitting there at 2 a.m, potentially rocking their baby to sleep, throw some headphones in and really engage with the audience on a different level. It's also, we add the opportunity to post anonymously, but we both get a lot of private messages from people really intimidated about doing that, really worried about their friends or family that are in the group judging them for something. So I suppose the podcast also adds that other bit of anonymity where they can reach out and we can discuss it and talk to other guests and other sleep consultants about their issue, and they can listen to it without having to put their name and their baby and whatever else out there.
Yeah, there's a lot of information to take in when it comes to baby sleep as well. And I think personally, that's why I did the course in the first place, was to arm myself with information. And if there's an opportunity to share that other people and arm them with information so that when they're dealing with something, they've got this whole, toolbox of different things that they could try or do differently or stop doing to help their baby, I think that's a really powerful thing. So that's a big motivator for me in doing the podcast, is giving that information and finding another platform to share it beyond just more posts or answering questions, that kind of thing, to Phil's point. An audio version.
Plus, we have great voices, Martin. People need to hear these voices.
And faces for radio, so.
Coming from a digital marketing background, Phil, have you got any thoughts on how you'll sort of kickstart the podcast and leverage that audience that you got?
Well, look, I think the biggest thing for us and the way we're structuring it is people aren't going to potentially listen to this in an episode by episode format like you normally would another podcast. It's potentially not your drive to work podcast. This is, you have a specific problem with your baby or a specific want and need to know. So each episode will be formatted around different techniques, different questions, different subjects to do with sleep training. So hopefully it becomes almost like an audio format encyclopedia for sleep training. And you can come on going, my specific issue is co-sleeping. So I can find the co-sleeping episode and you can then jump on and listen to it.
I also think it would be like those goosebump books where you go to a chapter and then it takes you to a different chapter. My problem, to your point, is co-sleeping, and then it takes you to a thing about, dark rooms, and then it takes you to a thing about awake windows. You follow the rabbit down the hole for your particular issue. I think that will be how people will digest the podcast.
Yeah.
I wonder if there's a way we could set up some kind of signposting for particular topics. So if you've got, say, 3 episodes that cover, one thing, you can do something where maybe there's a kind of edited highlights or
well, absolutely. And as Camille said, when you get into, as she mentioned, the rabbit hole that is sleep training, it can go, one solution might create 5 or 6 other tunnels. So that can often be one of the issues that we find with the group, is that people will ask a question, and because of the sheer size of it, within minutes it has 50 comments on it.
And they're all different.
And exactly. So to digest that and to, when you are exhausted and you are tired and scared and all these things that you go through as a new parent, to sit there and read all of these comments and it's all people just trying to help you, but it does sometimes as well, it can be mind-boggling. So hopefully the podcast is a way to digest it a little bit easier for those who are just in sheer exhaustion.
And I understand why people said that, why people have commented that, oh, that's why they've said that, because this. It's like drawing a link.
It'll be perhaps a little bit more of a linear explanation, so easier to follow that sort of thread. Yeah, that'd be really interesting to look at the stats once they start emerging of, do people cherry pick the episodes or are they in for the whole journey?
And there's definitely going to be people in both camps, but I know already which episode. I've already got a list of the ones that are going to be massive because they are the most frequent topics that come up, or the ones that are the most controversial or challenging as a parent. And I know that they're going to be huge. And so I know that we're going to have to be really thoughtful about, if we engage with another sleep consultant to bring another set of information or perspectives into the room, we want to make sure it's the right person for that topic, because it's going to go, it's going to, like the 4-month sleep regression is absolutely going to be the most listened to podcast.
Could have a series on that alone.
You really could. But it is the most common question that comes up because everything falls apart and people don't understand why. And it's like topics like that, how do we make them digestible and how do we make people comfortable as they work their way through all those different warrens in that rabbit hole that they'll inevitably find themselves facing.
That's amazing. Phil and Camille, thank you so much for talking to me about this, and you're on the podcast coming to your earpods soon.
Yeah, well, thanks for having us. It's been great, and look, we're really excited, and we hope that this podcast can be as helpful as the group has been, and it just becomes an extension of that community.
Definitely.
Yeah, amazing. All right, thanks, guys. I'll make something out of this conversation.
No worries. Thanks so much.